बन के बन बन बोलूं रे, मैं बन की चिड़िया बन के बन बन बोलूं रे,
मैं बन का पंछी बन के सन सन बोलूं रे।
अफसाना लिख रही हूँ, अफसाना लिख रही हूँ, दिले बेकरार का, आंखों में रंगों भर के तेरे इंतजार का, अफसाना लिख रही हूँ।
आएगा 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 आने वाला, आएगा आएगा आएगा।
मन रे तू काहे ना धीर धरे, वो निर्मोही मोह न जाने, जिनका मोह करे।
ना चाहूं सोना चांदी, ना चाहूं हीरा मोती, ये मेरे किस काम के।
This is the music that the masses of India, down the generations, swear by, sway to, swing and swoon, besides sing and dance. This new genre of music, identified as film music, struck the right chord in people. It pervades and permeates all aspects of our life, from birth, weddings, religious occasions, to even death. It touches the soul and stirs a myriad moods like love, nostalgia, bliss, grief, or the abiding qualities like motherhood and patriotism. In spite of having relatively recent moorings, it surpassed the centuries-old hold of classical as well as folk music on people. Film music has become the anthem of the masses as it sets our feet tapping and heart racing. Yesteryear romantic superstar Shammi Kapoor, whose dancing style never went out of form, recognizes its place in our lives.
Basically, we are a country of music, folklore, folk, the Pahadi music, and without music we are incomplete because music is a part of our life and dance is very much there.
A country that witnessed and experienced a British way of life for over 200 years could not have remained aloof in terms of cultural influences, especially with regard to music. Western influences on Indian film music has come to stay with early experiments by music directors like C. Ramchandra, S.D. Burman, Salil Chaudhary, to the latest stalwarts like R.D. Burman, Bappi Lahiri and Anu Malik. Salil Chaudhary, who scored music for Do Bigha Zameen and Madhumati, explains the concept of westernization in Hindi film music.
Film music especially, it demands a wider range of composition. For example, a girl is singing bhajan, sitting in front of the idol, and after some time we go to a scene where a cabaret dance is being danced. From there we see a fakir is singing a folk song. So unless the composer has the complete range of all these things, then he cannot be a very good successful composer. It should be used in such a way so that it can enhance the Indian melody, not distorting it to something foreign. Harmony means it is the dressing or the decoration of the melody. In Indian film music, we have been using this harmony, and now we cannot think of any song which is not having a harmonic accompaniment. For example, in O Sajana. O Sajana. Now this is the melody. Now when we play this with orchestra, we'll play it like this. O sajna. Now this is the harmonic accompaniment with the melody which helps it, which enriches it. So I don't think it is foreign to our music. Of course, you should not use such obtrusive chords which are foreign to our ear. So this is the technique of Western music which we are introducing in our music, and it has been universally accepted.
But then, music was not always a part of Hindi films. There was a time when films did not speak. Story films made their first appearance in 1913 when Dadasaheb Phalke made Raja Harishchandra. Story films had arrived in India and there was no looking back after that. Indians are great storytellers and eager listeners. Hence, cinema had to have all the elements of fine arts and a good narrative. Ace filmmaker Shyam Benegal, who mastered the art of storytelling with his many offbeat films, puts it succinctly.
We have a very specific form of cinema which is very different from films made in any other part of the world. And in that sense, what happens to our films is that whatever you might want to say or do falls into the same kind of pattern because of the manner in which our narratives are worked out. And therefore, it's not what you say in a narrative that becomes important in Indian cinema, but is how you say it.
By the early 1920s, the Indian film industry had established itself where the money was, Bombay, and was well set on its path to success. In 1925, India made 70 feature films, which rose in the following year to 111 films. This made the British government realize that the Indian film industry needed to be regulated. As early as 1918, the government promulgated the Indian Cinematographer Act so as to gain greater control over the production of Indian films. Surprisingly, in an era when films could not talk, there was no dearth of colour. Full-fledged colour was to come to Hindi films much later in 1937 with Kisan Kanhaiya starring Padma Devi, who soon became known as the Colour Queen because she starred in so many of them. A little earlier, an experiment to introduce colour by Prabhat Film Company with Sairandari in 1933 had failed. Filmmaker Vijay Bhatt, who began his career during the silent era and whose film Ram Rajya was the only film Mahatma Gandhi saw, gives an idea of the period.
When I went to America and I went to Life and Time and with photos of Ram Raj and all that, I said that I have no interest in this. Then I told them that there is a system in India where pictures are colored by hand, painted by hand at that time, and then so many pictures were colored whole length pictures because one family worked and every family had one character so that they can keep the continuity of the color of the costumes and all that. Emotional or sentimental themes we can't afford to make because there is no, talky dialogue or anything like that. In those days, there was no electric motor. It was hand-driven camera. At that time, there were no double projectors, single projectors. So as soon as the one reel is finished, then lights are there and then title next part follows immediately.
Between 1921 and 1934, more than 1,000 silent films were made from Bombay, which was the major production centre, Calcutta and Madras. But none has survived the ravages of time. A few classics did emerge, but they were few and far between. Indian movies first began to speak in 1931 when the Imperial Movie Tones, Alam Ara, was released at the Majestic Cinema in Mumbai on March 14, 1931, catapulting the company's owner and the film's director, Ardeshir Irani, into the pages of history. Vijay Bhatt expresses the surprise of many a filmmaker of those magical days.
First of all, we never imagined that film will have sound, and Charlie Chaplin also was not confident about that. But then the Vitaphone was there, so the records were Warner Brothers Vitaphone records were there, and film was separate. Then sound on film came by Audio-Chemics machine first, and then by and by it improved. But the main problem was those stars who were popular in silent pictures, they couldn't speak Hindi dialogues. So we had to take stage actors. Stage actors They use their own way of acting, stagey and all that, and long dialogues, because when the talkies came, people, these producers said that we must give dialogues with spirit and all that, and sermonizing and lecturing and all that. And then there was one difficulty. There was no playback. So only singing artists should be taken. Now at that time what we had to do, that we have to shoot the whole song. We cannot have shots and then put insertions, all that. Musicians and all that, outdoor we go, we take musicians with us, sarangi and all that, and then used to record, picturize and record.
Thus, the era saw the rise of several popular singing stars like Kanan Devi, Noor Jahan and Suraya among the leading ladies, and KL Sehgal and Surendra Nath among the leading men.
मेरा चांद मैं तेरी चांदनी
मैं तेरा राग तू मेरी रागनी हो.
So great was the compulsion that even non-singers like Ashok Kumar, Devika Rani, Leela Chitnis and Shobna Samarth had to do their own singing.
When I used to sing on the screen, the harmonium player used to be around, the violinist used to be on the top of the tree, and the camera was put in one place, and my heart used to beat, and I just can't sing for nuts. I don't know how I managed. I used to do navas to God, that if my recording comes out nice, I will do so much of pradakshana and so much of jap and all that. But God has not given me the voice. How can I just bribe him with pradakshana and jap? Anyway, I was so relieved when the playback came. I really thanked all the technicians that I could do the playback. And I felt very much relieved that I don't have to sing.
It was soon after this that the scramble to make films in one's own regional language began, and the universality of the silent film was lost. The lack of a common language not only hampered the development of an all-India national cinema, but also restricted the free flow of films from one centre to the other. The beautiful actress Durga Khote, a leading lady of her times, talks of the progress from Marathi stage to films.
First Marathi picture actually was Prabhat's sound picture. Their silent pictures were, I think, about Shivaji and all these subjects they handled. But Ayodhya Ka Raja, King of Ayodhya as they called it, was talkie and Marathi, first Marathi picture. Beginning pictures of Marathi, there was that stage element in the acting, because mostly all of them were from stage, and mostly they had to be singers. We had to sing our own songs at that time. Direct music recording while you are shooting, it did give the colour of a theatrical touch. There's no doubt about that.
The South, which had hardly contributed to film production till then, began to emerge as a major producer of films in the regional languages. The roots of what came to be known as Bollywood were laid almost 60 years ago, when the Second World War ended, leaving a great impact on the economy of the nation. Audiences, tired of the deprivation and sacrifices of the war years, were flocking to the cinema houses in search of entertainment. Among the filmmakers who made a mark within the matrix of Hindi mainstream cinema were Guru Dutt, Raj Kapoor, Mehboob and V. Shantaram. The film industry was getting bigger, brighter and better. The move towards light-hearted entertainers had already begun by the close of the war. Acknowledging the contribution of these legendary filmmakers, Madhur Bhandarkar says,
in 50s or 60s, V. Shantaram ji, Bimal Roy, Guru Dutt Saab had very strong content in their film. If you see Sujata, you see Bandhani, Kagaz Ki Phool, or Pyasa, all this film has strong content. So I think in between 70s, completely that commercial thing came into the thing, the potboiler cinema, the run-of-a-mill cinema, and it took over the entire mode of drama which was there, the emotional ups and downs. Then the film became like a package, of 10 songs, 5 comedy scenes, 3 item number. Those kind of things started coming, and it just digressed from what it was.
Though content changed form over the years, the running theme that roused the sentiments of the people was without doubt patriotism. Bollywood dabbled with patriotic and nationalistic fervour in several films, like Sohrab Modi's Sikandar, way back in 1941, to the 60s rage with Jis Desh Mein Ganga Behti Hai, Son of India, Shaheed and Upkar, and a host of other films. In recent times, Roja, Mission Kashmir and Border whipped up the zeitgeist to maximum effect.
सरफरोशी की तमन्ना अब हमारे दिल में है.
As did the last year's grossers Rang De Basanti and Lage Raho Munna Bhai to great subliminal effect. Shyam Benegal, who broke the mold of popular cinema with his new wave approach, gives an overview of the taste of the people.
When you talk about doing a patriotic story, it has to be intrinsically patriotic. Now, we've had movies like this, particularly before independence. Now, after India's independence, we had a different kind of view, because India had already become independent. The next step in the process was to develop this country, to develop it so that it would be the kind of India we dreamt of when we were fighting for independence. You look at some of the Raj Kapoor movies of that time, or you look at some of the films that B.R. Chopra started to make. They are films that concern themselves with several factors, particularly with ideas of what kind of India are we about to create for ourselves. That the concern about the country is very real, and it is being put through so many different ways, and it is connecting you to your environment in a very interesting way. Now that to me is a very crucial element. Now from there we started to get alienated. When we go into the 60s and so on, you will find that by mid-60s, from say film like Jangli, which suddenly you find changes the scheme of things for Hindi cinema. Then on you go on to another trajectory.
Celluloid has grown big enough to accommodate big names. While Shammi Kapoor shared space with Dev Anand and Dharmendra, Raj Kapoor earlier clicked along with greats like Dilip Kumar and Rajendra Kumar. Each had their own signature style and signature tune, making it memorable for the masses.
ये मेरा प्रेम पत्र पढ़कर कि तुम नाराज ना होना, कि तुम मेरी जिंदगी हो, कि तुम मेरी बंदगी हो. नैन लड़ जाई है तो मनवा माँ कसक होई बेकरी, प्रेम का छुट्टी है पटाखा तो धमक होई बेकरी. नैन लड़ जाई है तो मनवा माँ कसक होई बेकरी.
Though Dev, Dilip and Raj continued to woo the public till the 70s, stardom scaled new heights with the entry of dapper Rajesh Khanna. But waiting in the wings, around this time, was the greatest superstar of all times, Amitabh Bachchan, who is still riding high on crores of rupees and scores of fans. Madhur Bhandarkar acknowledges the star power.
There are certain films which you feel you have to have a star if a very different subject, because the magnanimity of that subject need a star to tell a story, to convince. It is very necessary.
Even the stars are not always convinced about the formula. Thespin Dilip Kumar mourns the absence of good cinematic expressions.
We don't have enough literature. It's a paucity of literature because we've been given too much of attention to industrial development, to scientific or technological development. But while we are developing the technology, we cannot afford to lose our culture and our moorings. That's why we don't get the material. When you see these artists performing these funny dances or doing clumsy scenes, you should bear one thing in mind, that they are not doing it of their own free will. They do not have any better material to perform in or to work for. And people are making these demands on them, and they've got to cater to it. I know most of these artists who desire to do something that was better and more satisfying, but getting nothing else, they undertake whatever comes to them, and some of them have caved in to the prevailing creed of working.
It was precisely to combat the degradation of the Hindi cinema and to lay emphasis on the content rather than the stars that Film Finance Corporation was set up in 1960 to finance the low-budget films. All those filmmakers who had talent but no takers capitalized on the largesse extended by FFC, thus giving birth to New Wave cinema. Govind Nihlani, another maker of parallel films, is well aware of the travails in this business.
One of the tragedies of the parallel cinema has been that we have unconventional finance available for producing it, but we still have to depend upon conventional channels of distribution and exhibition. Now that's the dichotomy we have never been able to solve. So as a result of which, there was a certain difficulty in getting several projects off the ground. Three important areas: production, distribution, and technology. Now all three are interconnected. The production basically because suddenly after, if you notice, after 86, 85, 86, there has been a consistent inflation, and it has contributed towards hiking the cost of production of these films. So films that were viable before 85, the same budgets which are still available to them are no more sufficient even for the production. The other thing is the technology, which is very important. Now technologically there have been certain improvements in our film technology also, but apart from that, what happened with the television in this country, with the sudden expansion and coming in of serials, coming in of home video systems, and recently the cable. Now it has, because of the novelty of the medium itself, the video, it took away a certain class of audience which was beginning to patronize parallel cinema in a big way by coming out of their homes and going into theaters to see the film. This also indirectly affected the mainstream cinema also, because a certain amount of audience they also lost. To make up for that, they went into big productions, multi-starrers, and the distributors' stake in those films became even more. And they knew that the audience for the parallel kind of film was dwindling in any case. So their interest in this kind of cinema also reduced.
By the middle of 1980s, however, the new cinema was struggling to survive. In spite of the enormous amount of government support and media clout which it enjoyed for close to a decade and a half, the movement had failed to acquire any semblance of permanence. With the virtual demise of the new cinema, the Hindi mainstream cinema surged ahead with unprecedented vigor on sheer money power. But much before this could be attained, Hindi cinema had to go through a metamorphosis of sorts.
The important thing about India is that we've had different phases in our own development process. We've had times of great frustration, we have times of great optimism, we have had times of great sense of accomplishment, and we have had times of great disappointment in ourselves. And all these things do get reflected into the kind of films we make, one way or another.
I think industry from 2001-2002 has completely been changed. 10 years back, there was absolutely run-of-a-mill masala film is to run. From last 6-7 years, the completely scenario has been changed. There were filmmakers like Shyam Benegal, Govind Nihlani in 70s, in 80s, in 90s, whose cinema is to be there, appreciated, but a very microscopic audience is to see the film. They were critically acclaimed, they were national awarded, but it was not seen by the masses. They were not seen by the huge audience. And they are, in terms of publicity also, they used to get very less publicity, or they used to not get theatres that particular time. There used to one show in the regular commercial theatre, there used to be one show for them, or the small 4-5 theatres used to be there, and there was much media flair that time. But today, if you make a small film also, you can make good noise because of the media is there today, because you can promote the film. The entire electronic, the print media has really grown up in coming 5-6 years. So today, as a filmmaker, consumer, you can make awareness to the consumer of your film, which was earlier not there. So I think this completely scenario has been changed now.
Today, in the early 2000s, Films are not only competing with one another for audience attention, but with a whole plethora of home viewing systems. The pleasure of viewing films has been further multiplied with the advent of the multiplexes, which has changed the experience of watching a film.
From last 7 to 6 years, there's a major revamp. People are looking out for different subjects. As an audience, people have changed. Now, multiplex culture has come. People go to the theatre, they want to see different kind of cinema. They are gone are the days when at the single theatre you are there and you want to see the film, one film, you have to see how bad it will be, you have to sit and just watch it. So people have become restless because today remote is here with you, you have 50 channels with you. So they don't like, they just skip on to the different channel. The same thing happens when you go into the theatre also, you're paying amount, so they want to see good cinema and they just want to enjoy. And people want to see all kind of cinema. They are not like that. If they want to see a No Entry or a Bunty Public, they want to see a Page 3 also, they want to see a Black also. They want to see a Dhoom also, they want to see a Corporate also, they want to see a Khosla Ka Ghosla also, they want to see Pyar Ke Side Effect also. So I feel audience really has been changed and there is audience for all kind of cinema.
A country that is given to idolatry, stars are treated as demigods. They are worshipped, adored and aped by the people in every corner of the country, cutting across the linguistic and religious barriers. Maestro Salil Chaudhary speaks of the hold of cinema over the people.
Indian film music has developed one thing which neither our politics nor our socialism or nothing could do, that is the national integration. I mean, Indian film music is understood in South, in North, in East and West equally. Say one hit song which I have composed for Bengali, I make it in Malayalam and immediately it becomes a hit also. Same thing I use subsequently in Hindi, it becomes an all India hit. Now what it proves? It proves that the language of the music is understood. In whatever regional language you do it, but the tune, which is the musical language, that has taken an universal shape as far as India is concerned. And it has done, I think, a great service to our Indian music.
Bollywood today is a recognized world entity. Indian films like Dil Se, with its large format entertainment, began to do better business in the overseas territory than in India. Lagan captured the imagination of Westerners and was even shortlisted for the prestigious Oscars, though it did not actually make it to the winning list. Pure Bollywood-bred filmmakers like Shekhar Kapoor made a dent with films like Bandit Queen and Elizabeth, thus introducing the West to the use of melodrama as a legitimate cinematic device. Indian megastar Amitabh Bachchan outraced several major Hollywood stars, among them Peter O'Toole, to be voted Star of the Millennium in a BBC poll. And finally, a Hollywood film, Moulin Rouge, used a popular Hindi film song Chamma Chamma as part of its musical. Bollywood had finally arrived.
कजरा रे मेरे कारे कारे